I'm going to ask a question. You're an Israeli, and you're an Israeli aristocrat, right? You come from an Israeli aristocratic family.
Right-wing aristocrat.
Yeah, your family has roots, right?
Yeah.
Right. I suspect this is going to be important in your current thinking, and I'd like to ask you to speak a little bit about that family and about how it's affected you.
To start with, I'm not the kind of a person who really dig into one's one's roots, but my immediate relationship, my parents, my mother's parents, my grandfather, was definitely a right-wing icon, one of the leaders of the Irgun.
But these weren't thugs. Your grandfather
my
grandfather's an Irgun commander.
Yeah.
Right. He's not a. He believes in it. He has an ideology.
Definitely.
And he has the integrity to stick to that ideology.
Yes, and he was obviously himself a student of Jabotinsky.
Yes, who was
the real intellectual and ideological mentor of this school of thought. He was a major intellect. He was a major intellect. I think that the
Koestler said he could speak 7 languages and they all sounded like Italian.
I think that the first person who realized, first intellectual in the West who realized the impact of Jabotinsky out of the, let's say, right-wing Zionist milieu was Avi Shlem, who wrote. I met him recently, by the way. He came to my concert, and
he's a very, very nice man.
He is incredibly nice man. He wrote The Iron Wall. The Iron Wall was basically a book, a text. Sorry, it was an essay that was written by Jabotinsky, and actually was respectful of Arabs and their national and aspiration, respectful of the culture. But Jabotinsky suggested suggestion was very simple. He said, we are facing people with dignity. They're not going to give up. We have to serve them with an iron fist. And Avi Shlem was very clever to suggest that actually the Israeli so-called left, Ben-Gurion and his clan of thugs actually, adopted the Iron Wall philosophy. And this is the Nakba. For many years, I, by the way, agreed with Avi Shlem on that. I thought that his vision was pretty accurate because I am familiar, and I was familiar already when I read it, with Jabotinsky's philosophy. Now I think that it is possible that Avi Shlem was slightly wrong. It is very possible that Jabotinsky expressed the real meaning of Jewishness. And interestingly enough, Ben-Gurion, who was also a Jew, who decided to form a Jewish state, plundering Palestinian land, also understood his Jewishness in a very similar manner. But I didn't answer your question.
No, you're fine. Your grandfather, who you loved a lot and still love.
Yeah.
A little bit about him.
He was extremely charismatic guy.
You had a lot of contact with him.
Yeah.
You talked to him a lot.
Yeah, and I learned a lot from him.
Did he talk to you about these things?
Yeah, he was a preacher. He would preach. He was extremely patriotic, extremely nationalist. I would go with him in the 70s, in the old city of Jerusalem, and he would think as a military man or as a paramilitary man, he would say things that when I think about it now, I'm slightly perplexed maybe, but we would walk in the street and I said, these Arabs, why don't they kill us there? They can be on all these buildings and shoot us down, you know. And later when I start to dig into Jewish identity politics, I thought that this could have been either what I define as pre-traumatic stress. You know, I argue that it's inherent.
You mean your grandfather was imagining that the Arabs wanted to kill him?
Exactly, and then the other way to look at it is slightly more Freudian.
But of course the Arabs wanted to kill him.
This is a big question.
Wouldn't you?
This is a big question. This is a big question. It is very possible that he was thinking as such because he was projecting
You mean
his own symptoms
You mean because
on
he
them.
wanted to kill them, he had to
Because
say that they wanted to kill him.
because it is very possible that it is more than likely that he has this bloodthirstiness in him that was driven by a nationalist, racist enthusiasm, and he was projecting it on them. Now, by the way, I'm not so sure that the Arabs, so to say, we are generalizing here, were that keen to kill us. They were more interested, probably, to live in peace and to get by, bread and butter, the bread and butter philosophy. And
when your grandfather...
what I understood now is that actually considering the history of Palestine, I just mentioned it in short, considering the history of Palestine, the fact that Palestine was conquered since the beginning of time. Some historians say that it's as many as 70 different conquerors. It is only natural that Palestinian elite is not an intellectual elite, it's not a military elite, it's not a financial elite, it's an elite that was distinguished by its capacity to acquiesce, to be subservient to conqueror. As such, when you start to understand it, it is very easy to explain why Palestinian rich landowners were very quick to sell their land to Zionist funders already in the beginning of the 20th century, leaving thousands of their brothers and sisters, Palestinians, homeland, dispossessed. Then understand the betrayal of Palestinian and even Arab leadership in 48. It even help us to explain how is it possible that now, 100 years into a Palestinian liberation struggle, we find out that most, if not all, of NGOs in Palestine are funded by a liberal Zionist Jew, George Soros. So the betrayal is colossal. However, we are also aware of Palestinian resistance. And what we start to understand now, what I start to understand, that what we saw with Fadain and Fatah, which as an Israeli I was scared of, but I really respected it.
This is in the 70s.
This is late 60s and the 70s, was really out of character to the Palestinian people. I was then very enthusiastic with the rise of Hamas in 2000 onward, becoming a very strong political movement, and we have to remember that there was a lot of resilience there. The Israelis understood how powerful it is, and they've managed to annihilate the entire intellectual, cultural, religious elite of this movement.
So hold on, what you could be saying is that the Zionists made a big mistake because the Zionists wanted them out. If the Zionists had just wanted to rule them,
The
you're
Zionists,
saying the Palestinians might have acquiesced.
um,
Other,
this is
other people had ruled them.
this is for sure,
Yeah.
for sure, and this is why when it comes, I'm not talking about diaspora Palestinians, and especially about Palestinians who are living in refugee camps in the region. I've been, we know what is the situation in Yarmouk now. I've been in Lebanon earlier this year, and I'm traveling a lot all over the world and teaching poverty areas. And what I saw in Lebanon, the situation of the Palestinians is devastating, and I don't think that we even hear about it. We don't, let alone discuss it or thinking of the resolution of this devastating situation. But when it comes to Palestinians, for instance, in the West Bank, and you see in the manner in which, for instance, BDS movement in Ramallah compromised the most precious Palestinians in a clandestine manner, behind the Palestinian back, did it only in English, not even in Arabic. It is very clear that some, or more than some, elements within the Palestinian leadership, at least in the West Bank, are definitely happy to find a means of
to acquiesce
find a means of
and even to
coexistence.
collaborate. If
They definitely collaborate. Now, rather than being critical of it, I'm going to surprise some people here. And it's quite hard to talk about it without giving more background into it. For instance, if we are, everybody in this so-called solidarity discourse is very critical of Mahmoud Abbas, for instance. Now, looking at the history of Mahmoud Abbas is interesting because the guy was radical. As a young academic, he was definitely a history revisionist. He wasn't a coward. And 20 years ago, he certainly went through a metamorphosis. And I realized that at a certain stage, he grasped that the Palestinians don't have the military power, obviously, don't have the cultural might, the cultural means, don't have the supporting diaspora political lobby to knock down the Jewish state. They realize that they are dealing with something that is slightly sinister. Now, this is not because they don't have a clever Palestinians or whatever. They just miss something within their culture that moves them on. And these things are either there or not. For instance, if we look at Shia Lebanese, the rise of the Hezbollah. This is a new event. It was very easy for the Israelis to destroy the leadership of the Hamas, and there is no question that it was done with the help of collaborators, infiltrators into the movement. They knew where Rantisi was at 6 o'clock in the morning. The same happened with Sheikh Yassin. When it comes to the Hezbollah, it's a grassroots movement. When I visited Lebanon and was taken to a tour in south of Lebanon by the Hezbollah, I went myself through the path where Sheikh Nasrallah was walking every day as a fighter.
So you're saying the Shia have a stronger collective ability to resist?
They definitely, and I'm not an expert on Shia, but I discussed it in the last day.
And the key word is collective.
Yeah, the key, for me, the key word, it's not necessarily collective because we can then compare it with the ability of Brits to win wars, and I'm not so sure that it is collectivism. They definitely have. I come with something that is slightly more abstract. They definitely have the cultural means to facilitate resistance. And when some of us say these days we miss Arafat, this is what we refer to. There was something in Arafat
There was something
that gave us the point of resistance that couldn't be ignored.
And where's he gone?
And even
where's he gone? Who mentions him?
Exactly. And the fact that the Palestinians or Arafat, for instance, couldn't find the people or to establish a culture of resistance that would follow his line also is very, very interesting, but I'm not critical of it. When it comes to Jewish culture, and Israel is the Jewish state, we are talking about at least 1500 years of Jewish, Yiddish and Ashkenazi culture of making of cognitive elite. We spoke about it a few times before. The Jews in the diaspora, in the European diaspora, I say diaspora, they were not in the diaspora, it's funny, Jewish European Jewry,
we know what
European Jewry. I know, but we have to start to be very careful because almost every terminology we are using is a landmine. Is loaded and a landmine that is diverting the attention from the real issues. Yeah. When we call them diaspora, it's obviously it makes it sounds as if they came from Palestine. It's just not the case. For at least 1500 years, Jews had this unique cultural exercise, eugenic cultural exercise. We can look at it now as eugenic. They basically married the daughter of the merchant, of the rich Jew, with
everything about them was based on hostility to the other. Everything about the culture.
For sure.
But you can translate that into resistance if you want.
For sure. But by the way, when they did that, they were hardly resilient. They never been involved in immoral interventionist wars. It is very interesting. What I'm saying, they have created a segregated, a very small and unique elite, intellectual elite, a cognitive elite that, interestingly enough, was largely immigrated to Palestine because there were many Western European centered in Germany and Austria, Czechoslovakia.
These are the Jews who originally who ended up in Germany and then went to Palestine.
Yeah, and then went to Palestine in the 30s.
1936
1936 was in the Avara Agreement. There was a clear subdivision in the Jewish world between the Jews of the Pale, the Ostjuden, who were largely manual worker. The Jews called them, I'll say it in Hebrew because it's important, chotvei etzim and shoavei mayim, woodcutters and water drawers.
And superstitious.
And this is the people that Shalom Aleichem writes about, and the Tibi, the milkman.
Wise beggars and this.
They were not. And when these Jews started to immigrate to Europe due to the suffering, the pogroms or whatever in 19th century, it was actually the Western Jews, the German Jews, who were the first to oppose them because they didn't want anything. They didn't want anything to do with them, and they ended up in the United States and in Britain. Interestingly enough, what we see now as Jewish elite in America, this is not actually the real German Jewish elite. Obviously, these are generalizations, and we are talking about demographic move the German Jews stayed in Europe
So
till almost the war.
These are the wheelers and the dealers.
Yeah,
The American
yeah,
Jews.
the Dershowitzes and the Chomsky and the Woody Allen all these
Not to be dismissed. What they're willing and dealing.
yeah, they are obviously I don't know the family history of all those people, but they are Shlomo Zand. Sorry, you say in English you say Shlomo Sand. I say Shlomo Zand and nobody
It's
talks.
okay. We all know.
You know,
We know him.
no, people Shlomo Zand. Yeah, no, because
Okay.
it's written with S.
What does he say?
I don't know. I never read
Well,
it.
I certainly haven't. I've tried to.
No. Actually, I love
I
a
know
lot.
you-
I love a lot of the stuff.
You've talked a lot about it.
Yeah. Because there is something very genuine and very troubled, and I'm very familiar with. At first, I think that I always read him in Hebrew,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a great poetic writer.
I bet
And
that
I'm
makes
not sure that this poeticism translate.
I bet that makes a huge difference if you read it in Hebrew.
Yeah, I assume so, but I don't agree with him on many issues. But he always manages to teach me something. He, for instance, says he doesn't talk about Ashkenazi Jews. This is very important, and I try to find out if he's right or not. And obviously, I'm not an historian, so my only way to do it is to ask my parents, to ask professors of that generation, to ask Norton Nosvinsky when I met him, Professor Norton Nosvinsky. He says the Jews of the East were not Ashkenazi. They were the Yiddish nation.
Mm-hmm.
Those who then later formed the Bund and joined the Bund, they were the Yiddish nation. The Ashkenazi were the German
It means
Jews.
German.
Ashkenaz means Germany. Yeah.
Ashkenaz.
The Ashkenazi. What he said, which is revolutionary for me, is that obviously we are talking about subdivision. We have the Jewish elite, who are the Germans, and the very lower class, who are the Yiddish nation at large. Again, they had some Jewish aristocracy in Russia, and Jabotinsky is a very, very good example. He says that at the time of the Avara agreement, the transfer agreement in the 30s, the Russian, the Ostjuden, basically Ben Gurion and so on, they bring the German elite to Palestine, they save them, and in return they are entitled to use the Ashkenazi title. He argues basically that it was only in the 30s where all Yiddish nation became suddenly Ashkenazi.
You mean the German Jews get to call themselves Jews?
No, it's the Ostjuden, the Yiddish people,
Get-
get to call themselves
I
Ashkenazi,
see.
which
Right,
is which
okay.
is a very prestigious
I see.
standpoint. And this is, by the way, is very important for them because this distinguishes from the Arab Jews, from the Sephardic Jews, and this will allow them to play along with their discrimination later. It comes with another very important insight. He said that actually we speak about Jewish humor.
Mm-hmm.
There is no Jewish humor.
Mm-hmm.
He said Spinoza, I think that I'm quoting him now, Spinoza and Albert Einstein didn't go around cracking Jewish jokes.
Mm-hmm.
He said Jewish humor is basically Yiddish humor. The Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, it's Jewish humor, it's Yiddish humor. I now integrate his insight into my into this issue of cognitive partitioning within the Jewish world, within the Jewish elite, the Germanic elite, and the lower classes. And what I realized that the Yiddish humor that was in the 19th century, that was basically there to ridicule the stupid goy and to elevate the the wit of the Eastern Jew was actually the manners in which the lower classes or student, the Yiddish Jews, identified with those Germanic celebrities. This is revolutionary, and if I'm correct, it could help us to understand the political role of Yiddish humor or Jewish humor, because then you can take it further and to understand what Woody Allen is doing nowadays. He's doing the opposite. He's ridiculing by self-deprecation the Jew. Oh, yeah, I'm clumsy, I'm not good, and I'm just good in money, and so on and so on. I'm weak. And by doing so, he actually dismantle your ability to resist. If you tell me, oh man, you're a user, you're a Wall Street trader, and I tell, oh, tell me something that I don't know. what is left for you to do?
Ronald Reagan used to do that. you got me there. Another question. You seem to be fearless, right?
Yeah.
I've always envied this. You appear to be without fear,
Yeah.
right? You also, on a number of occasions when we've spoken, you've referred to your time in the army, and you've said, in the army we used to do XXX, you filled this in.
Yeah.
Is there a relationship between your current fearlessness and your Israeliness, and even more specifically, your army experience?
Yeah, let me be very honest about it. I was raised to be a patriot and to give up my life on things I believed in.
Is that true?
It's true.
Is that true that Israelis are
I'm
prepared?
talking about my
Well,
generation.
but you're kind of, if you say it about you, you're kind of saying it's something Israeli.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It wasn't specific
Yeah,
to
but
the
there
Atzmon
is
family.
there is another
Are you
Israeli here. Am I right? Your brother is my generation.
Well,
He wanted to be a pilot and was willing to
Okay.
give the ultimate.
Well, there's two things in wanting to be a pilot and it's not giving the ultimate. Yes,
Okay,
Israelis are brought up to be warlike. That we know. Are they prepared to die?
Let me explain it. I'm getting there. Okay, I told you not what I was, but what I was
Then.
brought up to be. Okay, so I was raised as a patriot,
Yeah.
and I didn't have. There was no cognitive dissonance, at least in my case. But then things start to change. I was born in '63. In '77, there was suddenly a peace deal with Egypt, and then some people in Israel were not happy with it, and I found myself actually identified or affiliated with the peace camp. I realized nowadays that it was a spin maybe, but it doesn't matter. This is how I felt, and I was young, and I wasn't sure that actually dying was the right thing. On top of that, I found my saxophone, and I wanted to be the next circumcised John Coltrane or whatever you want to call it. So a few things happened, and here I joined the army in '81, and I don't, in spite of this upbringing and this willingness to die for the right cause, I had a change of heart. And this change of heart was involved with a lot of suffering, because I really changed.
Just to clarify, is the change of heart you're no longer willing to die, or is the change of heart you're willing to die but for something different?
It wasn't obviously this is how I see it now, but it's not how I saw it then. It looked to me, I didn't think about Palestinians or anything as such. I wasn't even aware of the suffering of the Palestinians. I do realize that it sounds horrible to people who live here. We were not even aware of the Nakba, which sounds totally bizarre.
It may sound bizarre,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, this is how generations of Israelis and Jews
I
were.
tell you something
So
else.
as bizarre as it sounds,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the reality of human
Exactly,
beings.
this is the reality.
They don't
And I
have to
tell you-
see what they don't want to see.
I tell you something else. I realized also that here nobody in Britain and even Palestinians didn't speak about the Nakba till the late 90s.
I truly did not realise that place called Israel had once had. I didn't know.
Okay. So it's not that it's not that peculiar.
But then I also didn't know that the stuff in those polystyrene trays in the supermarket was the same thing that skipped round the farmyard. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
No, but anyway, I was confused, but this transition in my personality, and I still wanted to be a military hero, but I also wanted to practice my saxophone. And
So you wanted to be a live military hero.
yeah, and then when I joined the army, I had a very low profile, health profile, because I had an accident just before
That's
I
right,
joined.
climbing accident.
Yeah, I was a mountain climber, and I was a mountain climber because
Yeah,
I wanted to join. I was destined to join a very special unit in the army.
My theory is he had the climbing accident to get out the army.
I wrote about your theory. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Sure, I can believe it.
But
Very
it is
healthy.
possible. Yeah. But I joined the army. I didn't have to join the army.
Mhm.
Another thing, I was walking with a stick.
Ah,
All right.
so you chose to join the army,
I volunteered.
right? Why?
All right.
Because it was your duty.
Because it was my duty. I came out from a right wing.
Everyone else is joining.
You
Why
know,
shouldn't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I couldn't become a fighter, and I was training every day, and I raised my profile because I joined the army. I think I was initially in an educational unit, then I managed to get to the band, to the Air Force band, and then I managed to raise my health profile and to be sent to first training for a special unit. And then
Sorry,
there was a war.
hold on. When you say you raised your health profile,
Yeah.
you mean you got them to think you were healthier?
Yeah,
Why would you want to do that?
because
You still wanted to die for your country.
because I tell you it was a dilemma, because no, but this is
No, this is all. Very understandable.
anyway, and we are talking now about me being in the army for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a war, the 82 Lebanon,
Which you-
Lebanon war.
Which had never occurred to you that might happen.
It would definitely occur to me, because you used to think that every 7 years
It's gonna be-
you have a war in Israel.
Mhm.
We had one in 63, then we had the war of attrition, 69, 73.
Mhm.
You know, we expected something between 80, 81, 82.
So
Here I am in
there's a
82.
war and you go to Lebanon.
There is a war, and I was begging. I was begging, you know, and begging funny
So I don't
enough,
even,
and
I don't
begging
even
funny
know
enough
what
was
were
ruling
you
on the
begging
show.
to get out of it, or
No,
were you
I
begging
was-
to go? Begging
I
to
was-
go.
I was begging to get to the front. I was begging, and you know, the Israeli wars are very short. This war took 20 years, by the way.
You're leaving,
But until then,
you're leaving me now, Gilad.
no, but I'm
You're
sorry.
leaving me.
You asked for the
Yeah,
truth.
no, I want the truth. Yeah,
You know, and it's common. It's common. It's not unusual what I'm telling you. It's not uncommon.
so this is common in Israel.
It is common in America as well. When American soldiers, they really train for 3-4 months
Yes.
in 42, and they
Yes,
want
the kind
action.
Of, the kind of guys that join the army, it's common, but it's not common amongst the general population.
No, you have to understand that Israel, at least at
Yes,
the time,
this is what I'm
was a
asking.
military
Yes.
society.
Yes, and this fearlessness.
Now, talking until now, there was no fear involved, or at least not a conscious fear. It is very possible that I had my accident because I was fearful of the army. But this occurred to me. When I was studying psychoanalysis in Britain
Later.
in 32, taking drugs, drinking whiskey, and trying to look after a friend of mine. We tried to do an exercise, and oh man, you know what? I realized that I fell from the cliff because I.
So you're saying these insights you had later?
It was definitely not something when I fell.
No,
when I fell, when I
no,
crashed.
of course not. Of
Okay,
course not.
yeah, I was. It took me 15 years, good 15 years to admit. Anyway, this is very, very interesting because I was begging to get to the front.
Get to the front.
Before this, because Israeli wars are short. If you don't die, you really have to, and eventually, and my unit,
Let me just clarify for the viewers, because I know they'll be wanting to know this. When you're begging to go to the front, you're begging to kill people.
No.
You're begging to get killed.
No. I was anyway. I was in a transition. I was kind of waiting to start my course as a flying paramedic. In helicopter. I'm not trained yet to do anything. To get to the front was just to do whatever I could do as a rescuer, as somebody who gives a kind of schlepping out wounded and dead people out of the front. That's all. My job, I wasn't trained to kill.
Right, this is what the most ethical army in the world does. Right? It flies all over the place, helping people.
Anyway, in time of a war, you have a lot of
Sure.
injured, and by the way.
So you wanted to get to the front because you wanted to do your bit. In your case, it was being a flying paramedic.
I wasn't yet a flying paramedic.
You wanted to do your bit, to do your duty for your community, as you saw it at the time.
Yeah.
Fine.
And I managed to do it. There is a bit of chaos. There is a lot of chaos in the war, and actually everyone can do whatever you can do whatever you like. Nobody really stops you. Nobody knows what is going on, especially when things start to go wrong. And I remember myself getting to the border, and this is the 4th or the 5th day of the war.
And they wait on the border a long time, don't they?
Massive traffic queues of people who are waiting to get in, and you see the fear on their faces because they are going to kill and can get killed.
You see the fear when they're going in. Do you see any of them coming back?
And then you start to see
them coming back.
People coming back
with their faces shot off.
And you see these faces, and this was where my patriotism and.
So you are sane.
Apparently. But this is where my patriotism and eventually I ended up in hospital in Safad in Arabic, and I saw a lot of blood, and and also even a light injury in a war looks like a disaster. And then things got complicated, and it was pretty devastating for me to see. I saw a lot of Syrian commandos were injured in battle. They were schlepped to Israel by helicopter or whatever. We had to take them out, and then I saw how they were treated in the hospital. In some cases, not by the medical staff, by some idiots that punch them like people, like a dying cow. And I started to realize. Then later, I went into Lebanon, and there were still Syrian tanks with burned bodies kind of sticking out, and I saw Israeli soldiers stopping the convoy and taking pictures with burned bodies that they were there for 2-3 weeks, and I thought, oh my God, this is not at all
This is not
anything. This is not. I'm not part of this. I wasn't part
Okay.
of that collective.
I understand that, but I'm talking about your fearlessness. Are you fearless
But
now?
but I feel this is the story. You know, when people ask me at the time of the war in '82, I didn't feel part of it, and I became more and more fearful as the war proceeded, and eventually I didn't want to be a commando soldier. Full stop. I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't want to die for it.
Mhm.
I was a coward. In sensible, whatever you want to call it.
Same. I see.
However, when it comes to what I'm doing in the last 10, 12
Mhm.
years, I definitely sense it, that I become less and less fearful.
Mhm.
I am liberated when a Palestinian called for my disavowal. I'm liberated to look into
Right.
his acts.
This is interesting.
And I'm-
Ali Abunimah.
We can talk about it, yeah.
We can
Yeah.
talk calls for condemns you,
Yeah.
and a lot of other Western-orientated Palestinians sign his list.
Not a lot, 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that happened to me.
Yeah.
My heart would sink. My stomach would sink. I'd probably go away for 5 years. Right.
Yeah.
You don't feel. You feel liberated.
Yeah, and I tell you,
I saw you in a concert where you were booed, and you held a CD up,
Yeah.
and said, "I love it, I love it, I love it," and that's real. You don't feel. You feel
What was
feel-
I booed for?
It was some people started hissing you. Just a small group of Israelis were there.
Yeah.
They said, "Play music, Gilad, play music." They were very upset because you were an Israeli. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is 10 years ago.
They don't come anymore.
No, they don't. And you appeared. You seemed to enjoy it. You're saying you
Yeah,
you do enjoy it.
I learned to enjoy it.
Mhm.
Especially, you know, it was so easy. Ali Abunimah is a unique case. It's a Palestinian, extremely educated. I think probably an English boarding school,
Mhm.
and at the same time, uniquely stupid, almost retarded. It's amazing to watch because we see kind of the text looks nice, but when you look at the content, you know, oh my God. The day Ali Abunimah published his call for my disavowal, Professor Norton Nesvinsky, and he allowed me to say it,
Mhm.
revealed to me that a day earlier, Ali Abunimah asked him to cancel a kind of an engagement that we have in public, and then Ali Abunimah admitted to him that he has never read
Mhm.
anything by me, and the letter for disavowal is very embarrassing because it has nothing to do with my work. And then you see, it's like 20 Palestinians, but you know, you see people like Joseph Massad, academic,
Mhm.
he should know better. And you see Omar Barghouti, who called for boycott of Israel universities. At the time he's studying in Tel Aviv University. And you realize that there is something very embarrassing
Mhm.
about Palestinian intellectual elite in the West. Now, I'm not judgmental. It is very interesting for me. I have a curious mind. And the next thing that I would do, I would ask myself, why? Why? At the time, by the way, and I never spoke about it in public, I'm waiting. This is again something about me being an Israeli by origin. Something that the diaspora Jewish left don't understand, and the Palestinians definitely don't know. You don't drop atomic bomb on every occasion. You wait. You don't. You think
You contain.
tactically and strategically.
You contain yourself.
Yeah.
You hold your grudge.
Basically,
And you wait.
in 2012, I was brought to America by few organizations
Mhm.
to campaign for the March to Jerusalem. I don't know if you remember. I don't know.
Global march.
The Global March to Jerusalem. At the time, there were more and more signs that Palestinians in the region were willing to march to the border and to sacrifice the ultimate. And it happened already once and twice in the Syrian border. And then some people in America, including Palestinians, leaders, Palestinian leaders all over the world actually, decided to run this march. I was brought to America by a few organizations in order to raise money for the march. And the protest against me within the Jewish left, the Max Blumenthal, Philip Weismonder was enormous. Because this was a call for this was a call for the end of Israel.
They would rather not have they would rather have not ended Israel than have
sure.
Gilad Atzmon supported.
For sure.
We have that ourselves at the moment. There are people who don't want to commemorate Der Yassin, even if DYR has nothing to do with it, because Der Yassin means...
Okay, so I had first a Jewish letter, which I read. I read the letter and said, yeah, I said, they had a lot of quotes of me, and I said, wow, really great quote. They really picked the best quotes when they tried to denounce me. And I could see that a lot of people liked it, because I could see on Amazon, a lot of people bought the book, which is an indication. And then I had a larger group of Jews. So bring it up. At least we know who are the people who are upset by the global march to Jerusalem. And then I meet the march organizers, and they tell me, Gilad, Barghouti's NGO, BDS, all those organizations, Omar Barghouti, they don't support the march. How do you explain the fact that NGOs in Palestine don't support? Isn't it all about the right of return? And I told, listen, this is beautiful. This is how we learn what we are dealing with. And then there was the letter against me, and I say, great. Ali Abunima, Joseph Massad, Barghouti. Now we have the names. We have the names of the people who are basically funded by Jewish bodies, whether it's Soros Open Society or whatever. They offer, some of those organizations offer to support me and to fund me. Ali Abunima himself wrote to me, and it was published recently. He wrote to me, Gilad, just stop writing about Jews, right? Call it Zionism, and then we could be friends. Then we'll find a lot in common. And I am very happy to rid myself of all those allies, because the thing that really entertains me the most is digging into the truth. It's kind of a hobby. That's what I love to do. I now work on issues to do with cognitive elite in different societies. I compare between English aristocracy, 19th century, and the Jewish aristocracy. And sometimes my findings are very frightening for me as well.
I know that
you know that feeling, but it gives me a lot of pleasure. And I tell you something, Ali Abunima liberated me, because I saw a lot of problematic issues with Palestine, and I can talk about them. And now when I talk about them, I see more and more Palestinians. In my talks before I was disavowed, I would go to a Palestinian meeting, I would see 25, 35 in a big one, 100 activists. The demography was 40% Jews and 35% geriatrics.
So,
and maybe 2 Palestinians. Or one Palestinians or non-Palestinians?
So Palestinians are coming to listen to you. They're coming to hear what you have to say,
Yeah.
what you said already
Yeah.
about Palestinian ability to resist,
Yeah.
and they're pleased. They're not pleased to hear it. They're relieved to hear
They are
it.
relieved to hear it.
Because-
This is incredible.
Because when something is wrong, and whatever source it comes, you hear a possible solution, a possible explanation, you feel relief.
This is exactly the issue. Now,
Well, this
A
is
lot
to
of
their,
this
this is to their credit. Huge
definitely. I see now more and more Palestinians. Usually we saw 1, 2, 3,
Mhm.
and they were usually on stage. I see them in the room.
So
They ask me the most painful
So
questions.
now they're coming to actually to listen and to speak.
Yeah.
They're not coming just to be there because we're Palestinians.
Yeah.
Gilad Atzmon is pro-Palestinian, so we ought to
2
be
days
there.
ago, I had few Palestinians that actually followed the Abonim Akol and actually campaign against me, and then they decided to come to listen, and they tell me in the end, listen, this was incredible, and they stand up and they say, Gilad, we never understood what is wrong. Now, because many of them are Palestinians who are living in the West and raised in the West,
Mhm.
they themselves, due to political correctness and the hegemony of Jewish culture, a la Guardian of Zion,
Mhm.
they themselves cannot even contemplate
Mhm.
or discuss issues to do with cultural evolution and so on and so on.
And this could never happen amongst Jews.
What do you mean?
Jews could never hear what is wrong with them
It's not
and
true.
listen.
No, this is not true.
Well, it's not true that they can't hear.
Yeah, because Jews,
Tell me.
now this is very interesting. Diaspora Jews,
Mhm.
you're probably right.
But he's
The
very-
most dangerous culturally
Mhm.
people to this discourse or to the battle for truth are actually the progressive Jews. You're right about the progressive Jews. But Israeli society is a military society, and it is also a society that is driven by, now definitely, by hard capitalist inclination. Now, if you are a businessman, you want results.
Let
You
me
want
just-
results. If you are a military man,
Yeah.
if you are a military
Right.
man in the Israeli army,
You don't mess around.
it,
You can't afford to mess around.
Exactly.
So the same imperative that drove your grandfather to see what was happening,
yeah,
right, is that same imperative you think can drive Israelis to see
for
what's
sure.
happening.
And
Just
listen,
simply, you know what, this is not going to go on.
Listen.
You better make a deal.
listen, when you look at the greatest contribution of diaspora good Jews
Mhm.
to the discourse, you end up with spin after
Sure.
spin. Chomsky, even Finkelstein, whom I appreciate, he would go on a certain line, and he would. I love a lot of stuff that he. It's not a mutual relationship between us, but I respect a lot of. I respect him for a lot of things that he did, but it is restricted.
Basically, they don't break tribal bonds. Not,
Yes,
not
but
real
when-
tribal bonds.
But when you look at Israelis who contributed to our understanding,
Mhm.
Israel Shachar,
Mhm.
Israel Shamir,
Yeah.
maybe you don't agree, but Shlomo Zand,
Sure. And even people,
Gilad
and
Atzmon,
people like Uri Davis, who did.
yeah,
They went to prison for it.
exactly.
Like-
And now I stood up in the room, and even Ilan Pape, before he left Israel, he produced it as an Israeli. He produces the best text. Once
And
he came to England, this is very important. Once he came to England and was endorsed by the Jewish Progressive, his academic scholarship collapsed,
Okay, listen,
which is an amazing thing.
I want to move you on to something. We met in 2002.
Yeah.
I came here. You gave me a cup of Arabic coffee and a chocolate bar.
Here.
here in the
Yeah.
garden over
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah.
It was, I came to try to get you
Yeah.
to perform at a DYR commemoration. You very politely told me to F off, right?
Sorry about it.
Because that's all right, it's okay. Because you found me too Jewish.
Yeah.
Right, now I'm not one bit less Jewish now than I was then, but you've managed to stand it. Without talking about
I
me,
don't agree with you. When you came here, you showed me some Jewy poetry by Michael Rosenenle,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm, I just, this is the Israeli in me,
Mm-hmm.
all right, and my Jewish progressive enemies, they say it, and they're right. My generation and my parents' generation, we felt a lot of contempt to the diaspora Jew. It's not a personal thing,
No.
but it's not it's not that I feel but anything don't respect you. We are very allergic, the Sabra so-called, we are very allergic to this tendency to speak nicely and to cover things. No. So one thing about Israelis is that we do everything, we are straightforward. And this is quite something that I quite like about Benjamin Netanyahu. The other day, Ali Abunimah wrote an article about the right of Israel to call itself the Jewish state. In 8 pages, this unique retarded mind didn't identify the problem.
And Meir Kahan
said
it in 30
in
seconds.
one sense, a Jewish fascist, I don't want to say fascist, I don't want to give bad name to fascism, but this Jewish bigot, racist, said it one sentence.
It's the truth.
And it's not even Israeli, but he's an American who adopted that. And by the way, I listened to him in Hebrew the other day. He's Israeli. You don't even have a trace of American accent. Really? It's very interesting. Now, the other, that I, when you got into trouble, this is going back to the fearfulness or fearlessness. When you got into trouble, I went for your rescue, and we were not friends. I think then we start to know each other, and I did the same thing with Shamir, and I did the same thing with Dieudonné, because Dieudonné was in my house 2005. And Gilad came and played my theater.
You don't leave your comrades.
And this is very, very Israeli.
Right.
This is very Israeli. Look what these Israelis did for Gilad Shalit, who is a coward, clumsy soldier. In Russia, they would bring him back just to kill him, to put him against the wall.
When they do these prisoner exchanges and they swap X number of Palestinians for one two things, I always think this is amazing Israeli propaganda value.
For sure.
It's huge. It's
For
huge
sure.
when they do that.
And I can see the other day I was sitting with a very, very clever Arab businessman, and they spoke with me about a Lebanese film that was an Arabic film that was banned in Lebanon and so on. And they were sure that it was the right thing because it was pro-Israeli or presented Israel in good light. And I thought, listen, you're really, really behind when it comes to Israel. Israelis fund all the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian film that they can, because it presents them. Listen, this is important. It presents them. This is Jewish elite. It presents them as the tolerant.
Sorry, and the Jewish elite here.
No. Israel.
Again.
Okay. I'll start from a completely different.
No, just say it again. I lost.
Okay,
focus.
it is very interesting. I met these two business people in a few days ago, and they the Arabs, and we spoke about a new Arab film that to a certain extent is, I don't know if pro-Israelis, but present Israel in a
No,
positive
no,
light,
yeah.
whatever.
This is an Arab film, a Palestinian film,
It's I think Lebanese.
Lebanese film. Okay.
And I think that it is funded by a Jewish producer or whatever, and it is banned in the Arab world. No, the Israelis would do the other. It would do the complete opposite. The Israelis are funding Palestinian films, anti-Israeli films, to an extent that I was in Argentina a few months ago. An Arab film festival told me we have a dilemma. We don't know what to do with this BDS because all our Palestinian films are funded by the Israeli Institute of Cinema or whatever, of Young Cinema. So the Israelis are funding, and I tell these Arabs,
And George Soros is funding
For sure.
BDS.
for sure, I told them, listen, you don't understand. They are just 10 steps ahead of you. They tell the world, look at us. We are funding our criticism. We believe in freedom. And you play against them with cultural boycott. You try to sell the West the idea of zero freedom of expression, interfering with freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and the Israelis, the ultimate oppressors, they're racist, they buy those credits. You know, it's unbelievable. And this is because Israel has managed to achieve in a very short time an incredible integration of military, scholarship, academia, intelligence, and business. It's incredible. It's incredible. And what do we get in the Palestinian solidarity discourse, for instance, or in any lefty? We get the opposite. Every time we find that somebody is slightly advanced intellectually, we kill them. We have managed to annihilate every intellectual in this discourse. Shamir was kicked out. Shahak suffered in the early days. Those professors who endorsed my book are now blacklisted. Finkelstein, whether we agree with him or not, doesn't matter, is out. Who we are left with? And I asked those Palestinians in the conference, I said, if you want to study about the Palestinian Nakba, you go to Ilan Pape, to an ex-Israeli soldier.
Yeah.
Do you believe that a Jew will start to study about the Holocaust from an ex-Nazi? Not in million years. So where are your English-speaking academics? And they said, Edward Said. And
Silence.
they were silent. And this is a disaster. And then it comes to the moment that a beautiful Palestinian saying, Gilad, what do we do? And I told him, it's none of my fucking business. It's your business. But first, you have to identify the problem. My job as a philosopher is to help you identify the problem. What do you do with it? It's your business.